Good morning, friend. Welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we've got a busy day. We have 10 recipes we're making. It's freezer meal cooking day. I have 2 freezer meals in my freezer, which is surely not enough. And so it's still kind of dark outside. The sun is just coming up, and we are gonna get started bright and early this morning. Now, the first thing I'm gonna start with is we are going to do manicotti, and we're gonna make a meat sauce that we're gonna stuff our manicotti shells with, and then we're gonna make a bechamel sauce to go on the top. So I wanna get going on that first because we need to get the meat cooking. The only thing I have done to prepare for today is, one, I chose the recipes, and some of these recipes we're making up today, so it's gonna be kind of fun to see how this goes. I think it's gonna go really well though. And then I did cook up a little bit of beef yesterday because I was in the kitchen, and we're gonna make some beef taquitos. And what else did I do? I started some rice in the rice cooker this morning for a taco bake, and I shopped my pantry shelves. You can see a bunch of canned goods over there. We've got a bunch of jars of things that we've canned over the summer, and we're gonna get going. The only thing I had to buy for today's big cooking extravaganza, because when I was planning this menu, I tried to think, what do I already have on hand? So the only thing I actually had to purchase was the manicotti and a couple things of cream cheese. Other than that, everything else we had on hand, and we're gonna make a bunch of amazing meals out of stuff we've been working all season for, stocking our pantry with a bunch of garden fresh goodies. So I've got 2 pounds of Italian sausage we're gonna get cooking here first. We now have our sausage cooking. I removed the Italian sausage from the casing so we can break it up and stuff our manicotti. We've got our water on for our pasta. I do have my dishwasher unloaded so I can load the dishes into the dishwasher as we have dirty dishes. I've got some beef here. This is still mostly frozen, which we're going to turn into a bunch of different marinated meats for grilling. Even though it's winter, I love the grill. And so we're gonna make some really delicious marinades so we can grill. And then I've got all the canned goods we need. I think we'll see how many times I end up running downstairs for things I did not grab already. I did get some cream cheese out to kind of come up to room temperature. We've got our casserole dishes. We're making 4 casseroles, or not casseroles, bakes. We're making 4 bakes today, and just some other things that we're gonna need. The rice I started before I got ready for the day is done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off so it doesn't continue to cook. Trip number 1, since we've gotten started going downstairs to grabbing supplies. I grabbed some onions for our manicotti. I do have onions in the freezer, but I think I should use the fresh ones from the garden first. So I went down and grabbed those, and then I grabbed some flour because I'm sure we're gonna need some flour today. So we're gonna chop these onions. We really don't have very much veggie prep we have to do today. It's pretty straightforward. This is my list of things we're making today. Taco bake, manicotti, pizza dough is a question mark, Mongolian beef, 2 ways, 1 for the slow cooker, 1 for the grill. Honey chipotle beef, same thing, 1 for the slow cooker, 1 for the grill. A couple different marinades for chicken and pork, shredded beef taquitos, shredded chicken taquitos, and buffalo chicken. Oh, I already know I forgot something downstairs. It's okay. Going up and down the stairs is no big deal. I should get a compost bowl out, even though we really do not have that many things we need to do today. Oh, we should get some chicken cooking because we need some cooked chicken for a couple different things. So maybe I'll get the oven preheated. Or trying to decide if I'm going to cook it in the oven or on the stove. I think I'm going to cook it on the stove. For the manicotti recipe, I couldn't find exactly what I wanted online. And so I am going to be making this using 2 different recipes and combining them to make what I want. And so what we've got here is our sausage that I'm gonna saute with these onions to kind of bulk it up a little bit. And this is going to be part of our filling for our manicotti. I do want to stop the cooking process so they don't get overcooked, because they're going to cook again in the oven. So that's why I ran some cold water over them. And now our noodles are done. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the white sauce for the manicotti. So I'm going to turn my stove back on, and I'm just going to use the same pot that I boiled the noodles in. One less dish that I'm going to have to clean later. I'm going to we're making 2 pans of it. So I have 1 stick of butter in there, which is a 1/2 cup of butter. So I'm gonna grab a 1/2 cup of flour here. And then I'm gonna need to add some milk. I'm gonna wait until my butter fully melts before I add my flour. For this recipe, I'm kind of combining 2 different recipes. I saw a reel on Instagram and it was pretty similar to this, but it was not in English at all. And so when I was Googling recipes, a lot of them had ricotta filling, and ricotta is not Josh and I's favorite, and we prefer a bechamel sauce. And so I thought if I could combine, and then a lot of them didn't have meat in it, and I really wanted to use up some Italian sausage that I had in my freezer. And I thought making a yummy meat sauce, this is like what I saw on the reel, stuffing that in the manicotti and then having a red sauce base and a white sauce top just sounds absolutely divine. So I'm really excited for this recipe. So this is melting. I need to get out some milk. And I have not seasoned this yet, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of salt in both of these. I also have some garlic that I chopped up earlier, and I'm gonna go ahead and get that in here now that my onions are nice and soft. And while I'm waiting for my butter to melt, I'm gonna grate some nutmeg into the butter, and that will toast the nutmeg as well. This is now done. So we're gonna add the last ingredient, which is our homemade marinara sauce. And we're gonna let this cook together for just a few minutes. I wanna thicken this up a little bit because this is the filling. And so I've got some tomato powder here. And that is gonna act, that's probably a little more than I need. That's gonna act like tomato paste and thicken this up so we can use it to fill our manicotti. I can already tell that's thickening up nicely. And our white sauce is done. You can see how nice and thick and rich and velvety it is. So I'm gonna turn the heat off. I want to get going on cooking the chicken. We need chicken for the buffalo chicken taquitos, the shredded chicken taquitos, and the taco bake. And so what I'm going to do is make a little bit of a rub here with salt so that I just have a spice blend made up for all this chicken. So I'm going to cook all this chicken for these 3 different recipes the exact same way. Smoked paprika and garlic powder. That way I just have a little rub made up and we can just start cooking them on the stove. So I have chicken breast here and I want to cook them. I went back and forth. I could cook them in the Instant Pot and shred them. I could have purchased rotisserie chicken, but I had this, so I wanted to use this. I could cook it in the oven. I could cook it on the grill, but I think what I'm gonna do is just cook it on the stove in my cast iron. And I'm gonna cut this thinly It's still a little frozen. I wish it was thawed, but it'll cook up just fine. I'm just gonna slice it thinly so that it cooks up faster and we can get more seasoning on each piece of chicken. I'm gonna get my cast iron turned on. This is what we're gonna cook the chicken in. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on the bottom, let that heat up, and our red sauce, I think, is done. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off so it can cool, so we can fill our manicotti. You can see just how nice and thick it is now. So we're gonna let this cool. You know what, I should probably taste this and the white sauce. The marinara sauce that I put in this red sauce has a lot of flavor to it, so it doesn't need a ton, I don't think. That's really good. I just tasted the white sauce. It's got some sweetness to it. So I think with the tangy, like, you know, like this, the acidity you get from the red sauce and a little bit of sweetness from the dairy, that is gonna be delicious. So here's our rub. There's nothing super fancy about it. I'm just gonna mix the salt and the paprika and the garlic powder all together. Just kind of like a generic seasoned salt that will go well with the 3 different recipes we need this for. My oven isn't fully level, so I just have to kind of spread that oil around a little bit. And then I'm gonna season each piece of chicken and put it seasoned side down. We already are assembling our first meal, which I can't even believe it. And then before too long, we're gonna be assembling a bunch more. We just have to wait for that chicken to cook. So while the chicken is cooking, I did sanitize my counter. We're gonna go ahead and get our manicotti assembled. So I have a bag here because I'm thinking this is gonna be the easiest way to stuff our manicotti. So you can see how nice and thick our meat sauce is getting as it cools, which is what we need in order to, I think, fill these tubes. So I'm gonna get this in here. When I do freezer meal cooking days like this, I like to kind of have a combination of different kind of meals. So this would be, you know, kind of like a casserole, I guess, or a bake, where I can just throw this in the oven and I can then, you know, open a bag of salad, go to the garden and harvest a salad, you know, steam some broccoli, and dinner is done so easily. You can see how thick this white sauce has gotten since it's cooled. I wanted everything to be cool before we assembled it, just so that I could put it directly into the freezer. And then you'll see we'll have things like marinated meats that can go in the crock pot or in the slow cooker, on the grill, and they give me a little bit more flexibility and I can do more with it. Depending on how much time I have, I might grab out something that I'm gonna put on the grill for tacos, and then I can, you know, make a couple different salsas or whatever it might be to go on the tacos, versus this might be something I would pull out on a night where I don't want to do anything. I want it to be super easy. So I'm putting my white sauce on the bottom, and I'm going to put a slit in the corner of my bag. I don't want it to be too big. I could always make it bigger if I need to. Woo, don't want that in there. And I've never done this before. So I've got my manicotti shell, and I don't want to break it, so I'm going to be very ginger with it. And then I'm going to, let's see if I can do this without making a mess. Okay, friend, here we go. Moment of truth. I might have to fill it from both sides. I think so, yep. So we'll do some from that side and some from this side. and now that's filled. So we've got one done. This dish turned out exactly how I wanted it to. We actually had this on Christmas Eve. It felt festive enough to have for a Christmas Eve meal. We had a very quiet Christmas Eve with just my little family, and Josh had a friend from out of town. And so I thawed one of these out, and we had a Caesar salad with it, and it was just so delicious, and it felt festive enough to have for Christmas Eve dinner. We have done lasagna bolognese with bechamel sauce for Christmas and Christmas Eve before, and so this just felt like a little bit of a different take on that kind of more traditional meal that you might have on Christmas. We were able to get 10 manicottis in each casserole. The filling worked out perfect. Now I just have a jar of marinara sauce that I'm just going to pour over the top between these two. That's about half. I have some Parmesan cheese. I'm just going to top it with a good amount of Parmesan cheese. And now we have 2 dinners done. We have all our meat cooked now, which sometimes can be the hardest part. And I could have done this a lot easier in the Instant Pot, but I think the flavor is just so much better when it's sauteed like this. So I need to cut this all pretty small because we're gonna be wrapping this in tortillas. And so I'm just gonna take a second. Yeah, the flavor on this is gonna be so good. Sometimes it's worth taking just a few extra minutes. All the recipes we're making today are so easy. We got the most complicated one out of the way, which was the manicotti. And so it was worth that, it probably took me 10 minutes, well, maybe 20 total, but I was able to do other things while the chicken was cooking. So I don't want this shredded, I want this diced, and I am dicing it pretty small here. We need this for 3 of our recipes. I got the chicken all diced up. This chicken I cut a little bit bigger because this is going to be for the taco bake. And then this is going to be for the buffalo wraps and for the chicken taquitos. So let's start with this. For the buffalo wraps, we are going to start with cream cheese in our bowl. Frank's Red Hot sauce. Do about half that bottle. Sour cream. Basically going to make kind of like a ranch in here because I don't have ranch, but I do have sour cream and ranch powder. So we're going to just mix the two, and that's going to be our ranch dressing in here. And then we need one more thing. What was it? Cheese. Some cheddar cheese. These are perfect for lunch, snacks. They warm up beautifully. You can warm them up in the oven, or you can warm them up in the air fryer, microwave, however you like to heat things up. I put 2 handfuls of cheese in there. That's just a sharp cheddar. And then I'm going to put half of our chicken. The other half is going to be for the other recipe. I did get the cream cheese out maybe an hour or so ago from the refrigerator, so it's not super, super cold, so it's going to be easier to mix all this together. I just grabbed a cookie sheet and some parchment paper and a cookie scoop. And the only thing we have to do to finish these out is to wrap them in some tortillas. So I just have a big cookie scoop here so that I can easily get it on here. A lot of times when I'm thinking about what recipes to make when I'm batch cooking or making freezer meals, I'm trying to think what has similar ingredients but I can kind of tweak it so that it tastes different and I don't feel like we're just eating the same thing. But when I'm actually cooking and making and assembling things, I'm not getting out or having to cook all different proteins for each individual recipe. So that's why I thought I could make these 3 different wraps, and 2 of them were going to have the same protein, and then 2 of them were going to have a lot of the same spices. And so we can have 3 kind of pretty different meals, but it didn't take a lot of work to make all 3 of them. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 out of that. Now we can move on to our other ones. For this next taquito we're gonna make, I've got some shredded beef. All I did last night, I was in the kitchen, I had a completely frozen chuck roast. I threw the chuck roast into the Instant Pot with a little bit of water, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and I turned it on for 90 minutes. And then I let it cook, pulled it out, shredded it, and here is our beef for our beef taquitos. We're gonna flavor this a little bit different than we're gonna flavor our chicken one, so we can have 2 different. And you could use corn tortillas or flour tortillas for this. I'm just gonna use flour for everything. I'm gonna add 2 handfuls of sharp cheddar cheese. I have a jar of salsa verde. I'm gonna put probably about half of that in there. Next, I'm gonna add some garlic powder, cumin, smoked paprika, and freeze-dried cilantro. Equivalent of about 1 bunch of cilantro. Mix that together, see how that looks. I'm gonna add a little bit more cheese, just so that everything sticks together nicely when it's heated up. That is our filling mixture. The cool thing about having these beef they're burritos, taquitos, whatever you want to call them, in the freezer. I like having them because I can pull them out and you can just warm them up and crisp them up and eat them and dip them with a little bit of sour cream or salsa. Or what I've done a lot of times is I'll take them and I'll open a jar of enchilada sauce, put the enchilada sauce down on or in a 9x13 casserole, top it with a little bit more enchilada sauce, top it with some cheese, and then I have enchiladas that took minutes to put together as opposed to having to make the meat, roll the tortillas and all that stuff. It's just really, really easy. A lot of times I'll make enchiladas and freeze those as an easy freezer meal, but I've kind of really been enjoying this because I have a lot more flexibility when it comes to reheating them, what I want to do with them. So I'm just gonna do the same thing I did. Now, I don't do that with the buffalo ones. The buffalo ones, I'll just eat. We'll eat them on their own. They won't be turned into enchiladas or anything like that. You could use ground beef, chuck roast. I just happen to have quite a few chuck roasts in my freezer, so that's why I'm using chuck roast for this. Josh said these beef wraps or taquitos, burritos, whatever you want to call them, are his favorite thing I've made in a long time, which he said that he was sitting at work and thinking about them. And I think that's the hugest compliment. He went through them extremely quickly because he was eating them every day for lunch. And I already made him a second batch of them because they came together so easy. Throw the meat in the Instapot or crock pot, add some cheese, get some tortillas, add your seasonings, wrap them up, and you've got such an easy meal prep. So it worked out perfect. His favorite were the beef and my favorite were the chicken. All right, now on to our chicken ones. I'm gonna use a lot of the same ingredients. That's one nice thing about when you batch cook like this is you're only getting the ingredients out one time. We're gonna start with 2 handfuls of cheese, our chicken, a block of cream cheese. I'm gonna use the rest of our salsa verde, 1 bunch of cilantro, garlic powder, cumin, and smoked paprika. And we're gonna mix all this together.
I also added a couple handfuls of sharp cheddar cheese. That was one thing I did do the day before. I was in the kitchen the day before this, and I forgot to mention earlier that I did shred up all the cheese for today, just so that that was one thing I didn't have to do today.
This is my favorite one by far. It is so good. Oh my goodness, that chicken. I am so glad I took the time to cook the chicken in the cast iron. I just think it just makes it taste so delicious. So I'm just gonna do the same thing with this chicken filling as I did with the other two. And you could really do whatever you have on hand. If you wanted to saute up some onions, you could put that in here. If you wanted to use chorizo, oh my goodness, that would be good. I just had that thought. Chorizo, I've never done this with chorizo before. You could do it vegetarian with beans and rice. I've never done that before either. That would be really good as well. I'm gonna put the chicken ones that way. I'm gonna flash freeze these. So as soon as I'm done rolling all of these, I'm just gonna throw this whole cookie sheet just directly into the freezer, just like this. And then as soon as they're basically frozen, then I'll put them in a freezer bag. I love these for lunches. This is actually one of my favorite ways to eat these is for a really quick lunch. If I have a very busy day and I need something with a lot of protein in it, I can just warm one of these up. I can do it in the oven or in the microwave, but I think an air fryer, they would probably warm up really well. The buffalo ones, I think in the air fryer would be delicious. I just don't have an air fryer. Perfect. Now we can make our taco bake since we have everything we need for that recipe. This recipe is gonna come together in just a matter of minutes again. It's basically a taco bake, bean and rice bake, bean and cheese bake, but it's gonna have a lot of delicious flavor. I'm kind of making this one up as well. I have a recipe I found as inspiration, but I am deviating from the recipe. Go figure. So here I just have some rice, and I think I made a little too much rice, which is fine because one of the recipes we're gonna be making in a little bit, I will serve rice on the side. I'll keep it out and I'll grill it up this weekend, and we can use some of this rice as a side. So not only are we doing freezer meals, apparently we are prepping food for this weekend, so I don't have very much cooking I need to do this weekend. This is one of those recipes you can really do whatever you want. You could make it vegetarian, you could make it with beef. The original recipe I'm getting inspiration from for this actually called for ground beef, but I was already cooking chicken, so I thought we would use chicken. I have corn and black beans. I'm gonna go drain these. I'm gonna sprinkle the equivalent of 1 can of corn on top of each of these. Now I'm gonna sprinkle the equivalent of 1 can of black beans on this. If you like pinto beans, use pinto beans. If you don't like beans, leave them off altogether. Then I have 2 little jars of peppers. I'm gonna go ahead and open these up, and I'm gonna take a pair of scissors. This has garlic and a couple different kinds of peppers. There's about 4 different types of peppers in this little jar. I've been using these as you would a jar of peppers or diced chilies that you would get at the store. There's garlic in there. I'm gonna sprinkle that on the top. I'm gonna do the same thing with this jar. There's something really satisfying about opening that many jars. It means that all the effort I put into making those jars or filling those jars was worth it. So here we're going to make a sauce for the top, because right now it's kind of just boring. It's just beans and rice and chicken and corn. So we're gonna make a nice sauce to go over the top. And this couldn't be easier. I have sour cream and a jar of enchilada sauce that we made last year. And I need a whisk. You could just use the enchilada sauce, but I kind of wanted to make it a little bit creamy and a little bit more special. That's why I added a little bit of sour cream. And the way that we would eat this is probably with chips. and the pickled carrots that I made that are delicious. You know what, I think I'm gonna need more sauce than that for these two. I have one more jar of enchilada sauce. And that, my friend, could not have been any easier. So we're gonna top it with cheddar cheese, put the lid on it, and we have 2 dinners prepped and ready to go. Plus, this will be more than enough for lunches as well when I bake it up for Josh and I. Into the freezer these go because these are not hot anymore. They're completely room temperature. I wanted to take a second and reset the kitchen before we go on to kind of phase 2 of today. I just got the dishwasher loaded. I've got 2 more dishes I need to get in here, and then I'm gonna actually start the dishwasher because it is full. And then I just wiped the island down so that we can kind of start fresh with our crock pot dinners next and our marinated meats. And that way we can kind of go into that part of this with a reset kitchen. I do want to go ahead and I think wash that cutting board real quick. So I'm gonna turn the dishwasher on. Got towels that have been used. We didn't end up using these diced tomatoes or this 1 can of salsa verde yet. I might end up using it in something else. I don't know, but I am so happy with how many jars we've opened. It's awesome. It means that my work in putting things in those jars was worth it. So now I'm just gonna scrub this, get this washed, and then my sink is completely empty, which is fabulous. If I can, I like to take a second to reset the kitchen because then it's less stressful overall, and I probably should end up having a little bit more coffee because my first cup of coffee is sitting there, not finished. It won't finish itself, and I got up really early this morning. Oh, it looks like I got 1 knife in here too. I'm gonna go ahead and wash as well. Trip number 2, downstairs. I was reading the next recipes and seeing if we need anything. And we need a little bit more oil. We needed honey. I didn't have any honey up here. Some mustard. And I need to make some more brown sugar. So I need to get a thing of white sugar so I could make some brown sugar. Brown sugar is just molasses and sugar. And so I'm just gonna mix it. Actually, this is the first time I've ever thought, why don't I just make my brown sugar in my brown sugar container? I already poured some molasses in here. Normally I make my brown sugar in my, there's the molasses right there, in my KitchenAid, but I didn't feel like making that a mess. So we're just gonna mix this together. My whisk is in the dishwasher, and so a fork's gonna do just fine. I need a little bit more molasses. When I'm doing marinades, what I like to do, especially if I'm gonna make them from scratch, like we're gonna be making all of these marinades from scratch, I like to either have 2 different proteins, like for the citrus, we're gonna have pork and chicken. So when I go to cook it, it's different. It's not exactly the same. Even though it's the same marinade and it's no more work for me to make 2, instead of having 2 porks or 2 chickens, which works really well too, Sometimes I do that. A lot of times I do that. But it's nice sometimes when you can do the same marinade, but 2 different ways. So for example, the Korean beef that we're gonna do, I'm gonna do a Korean beef chuck roast that I will put in the slow cooker, which will be like a shredded beef. For some night, I want a shredded beef. And I'm putting the year. And then the other one, the Korean beef, is going to be with a flank steak, or I think it's a skirt steak actually. It's a skirt steak, so I'm gonna put that on here. And that I'm gonna cook on the grill. So they're both beef, but they're gonna have they're gonna be a little different when I actually go to cook them. So it's no more work for me to make 2 of the marinades, but to get 2 dinners that are a little bit different. And obviously, you know, one night with the crock pot chuck roast Korean beef, I could do green beans, and then the one that I grill, the skirt steak, I could do broccoli or something. Okay, so I need to get more bags. I only have 2 more bags. If I have more bags downstairs, then I'll be able to do 1 more marinade. Otherwise, we're only doing 3 marinades. But I want to get to 4. So I've got 2, so we're definitely going to do the honey chipotle. And that's going to be honey chipotle chuck roast for the slow cooker. And one's going to be honey chipotle chicken. No, skirt steak. So if you have, you know, say you have like 6 of your favorite marinades, you can really change that up greatly depending on what type of protein and how you cook that protein. It can really change up the flavor profile. So let's start with the citrus marinade. So I've got my 2 bag holders here. We do need to prep the chicken and the pork for this because I'm gonna put it on skewers. I've never actually put skewers in a bag and froze the skewers before, but we're gonna try it. So the reason I wanted to make this marinade is because I have marmalade that I'm not sure what I was gonna do with, and I wanna use it. So I like to use orange marmalade for an orange meatballs, but I just made that not that long ago, so now we're gonna use this to make a marinade. So I'm gonna put some orange marmalade in this bowl, along with about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'm gonna take this jalapeno and just slice it and put that in there. I have an orange that I zested, but I didn't actually juice it the other day, so we're gonna put the juice of this orange in here. And I've got another one, I think I'm gonna do 2. I'm gonna add some garlic powder and salt. We're gonna whisk that together. Fresh garlic would be really good in this too. The last ingredient is gonna be about a 1/4 cup of oil. And I can taste this because obviously there's no meat in it yet. When I'm making marinades, I try to think of some balance of salty, sweet, spicy, savory, citrusy. That is so good. That is so good. And even with just those jalapenos sliced, there is a little bit of heat to it. And the soy sauce really rounds it out and balances out. That is phenomenal. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I need to prep the chicken and pork. I think I'm going to go ahead and grill the pork up for dinner this coming weekend. So I'm gonna go ahead and skewer those and get it into one of these baking dishes just to go into my refrigerator and marinate. I'm not gonna freeze it because I'm gonna cook it this weekend, but I do need to prep the chicken that's gonna go in the freezer. So for the pork, I'm gonna cut these pork chops. These are really thick pork chops that I got, and we're gonna cut them into about 1-inch chunks or so. And if they're still a little bit frozen, which is totally fine. It actually makes it easier to cut. think the citrus marinade with the pork is gonna be really delicious.
The way I served this pork kebab marinade is I grilled the pork on the grill, and then I used the leftover rice from the bean and rice bake, and I steamed broccoli. So it came together so easy. That's one thing about when I do these big cooking days is I usually don't have to cook for the next few days after, because instead of freezing every single thing, I can keep one or two of the meals out, and I can cook one the night that I do these big cooking days, and then we eat on that, and then I can in a few days grill up or cook up or bake up another dish. And that's what I was able to do on this day, and this marinade turned out so good.
I went ahead and I cut chicken breast up into cubes. I was gonna put them on the skewers, but I thought, you know what, that's gonna puncture the bag. So when I open it, I will just go ahead and skewer it. So I'm gonna put half the marinade on our pork and then the rest of it in here with the chicken. And that looks good. I'm just gonna cover this and pop this in the fridge. And in the next, day or so, I'll just toss the pork in the marinade just to make sure everything is getting marinated. And there's our chicken breast. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the freezer as well. I have now prepared the beef for the next two marinades. I've got a chuck roast here, and then here I have what's called skirt steak. The closest thing that I can think of what this would be like, because I don't think I've ever seen this in the grocery store, it's like flank steak. It's a very, very tough cut of meat. So the best way I like to cook it is on the grill, piping hot grill, get it nice and charred on each side, pretty rare in the inside, slice it really thin on tacos is fabulous. And then chuck roast is obviously a very tough cut of meat as well, and that does really well in the slow cooker. So we've got 2 bags prepared here for our Korean beef. This is my mom's recipe. It is so delicious, and we're gonna make the marinade in here and pour it on the top. But I do have frozen ginger here, and I think what I'm gonna do is just pop a oop, that's gonna fall over. Pop some frozen ginger. I think I'm gonna do 2 of these in each of those. Get this back in the freezer, and then we can make the marinade in this bowl. I absolutely love this marinade recipe. My mom usually makes it with flanken ribs, but it does really well with other types of beef. Oops. No, that's what I wanted to do. Sugar, started with sugar. But I just put twice as much sugar than is needed, so I'm gonna take that out. Soy sauce is next. Sriracha. You can add as much or as little of that as you want to taste. Sesame oil. Rice vinegar. This recipe calls for a lot of fresh garlic. I don't have a ton of fresh garlic, so I'm going to use what I have, and then I'll use some powdered garlic as well. And a little bit of ketchup to help bind everything together. That's our marinade. I'm just going to divide this marinade between the 2. The next one we're gonna make is the honey chipotle, and I'm gonna do this in the blender because I want the chipotles to actually get blended up. So I had some just in the freezer, because usually when I open a thing of chipotles, I can't quite go through a whole jar at one time, and I think I'm gonna need more than that. This is honey. I'm more than doubling this recipe. I had to get another jar of chipotles. I think I'm gonna go ahead and make some honey chipotle chicken as well because I want to use all these chipotles. Here I have the same thing as I did for the Korean beef, a bag of skirt steak for the grill, a bag of chuck roast for the slow cooker. Get that in there. I'm just eyeballing this. Oil. It's probably more oil than I needed for the slow cooker one. Oh well, it's okay. Cilantro, this is freeze-dried cilantro. I'm gonna put all that in there. Garlic. Add some fresh lime juice because I have it right here. And I've got a lemon that I zested earlier in the week that needs to be used. I'm gonna go ahead and zest that or juice that, and this one. The citrus is not in the original recipe, but I've got it and I think it'll add something nice to it. So we're gonna add it today. Last thing I'm gonna add is some salt. And we're gonna blend this up. The benefit of not making the marinade in with the meat is you can taste it, and something like this, I do like to taste if possible, because chipotle sometimes are super spicy and sometimes they're not at all. Oh. That is good. I do think I'm gonna add a little bit more honey because there is some heat to it, but I really like that citrus brightness that adds. That is delicious. So I'm gonna add maybe a couple more tablespoons of honey, mix that together. I need to get some chicken out and in a bag so we can pour this over. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so good. So good. This would make a really good salad dressing too. If I did it for a salad dressing, like a taco salad, I would maybe add some sour cream to it. I was looking at the recipe one last time before I put the marinade in with the meat, and I just prepped a bag of chicken, and I realized I forgot cumin and paprika. So I'm gonna add some of that, whip it up, try it again, and make sure the flavor is still on point. Woo! That is delicious. I wish I had chicken thighs for this marinade. This is chicken breast, but that's what I have. And it will be just as delicious. I just think that I prefer chicken thighs, but I'm glad that I was able to get 3 meals out of this. I do want to get every last bit of marinade because it is so incredibly delicious. I've been making more and more crock pot meals and really learning or trying to learn how to make a good crock pot meal. And one thing I have noticed is a lot of recipes call to add a lot of liquid to the crock pot. So for example, a lot of recipes for this chuck roast, when I put this in the crock pot, would say to add a cup or 2 of water or a cup or 2 of broth. And I find that it gets too watery when I do that. So I prefer not to add a ton of liquid because I tend to notice that the meat itself produces its own kind of broth. And if I add liquid to it, then it just gets too brothy. So I'm not adding to my crock pot marinated meats any extra water or broth or anything because I have noticed that they do pretty well just on their own. But if, you know, I'm cooking it and I notice it needs a little more liquid, I can always add it. Now I'm just gonna mix all this around. And we have 3 meals out of this. That's amazing. 2 times, I guess I still technically had to do it once, but 2 times I don't have to pull out my blender and make it messy to make this really delicious marinade. That's why I love batch cooking. Less dishes. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of dishes. I've already filled up the dishwasher once today, but that was 3 times 1 blender. Messy. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, these are ready to freeze. I have just a little bit of chicken that's thawed. So I just ran downstairs to grab a few more freezer bags, and I'm gonna make honey mustard chicken. You all have seen me make this a billion times. It is one of Josh and I's favorite. But because I've got honey and I've got mustard out and I've got a bag of thawed chicken, I'm not going, and the kitchen's a mess, I'm not gonna just put that chicken in the freezer without putting it into a marinated first. This recipe really couldn't be any easier. It's a little bit of herbs. I'll link it down below. Grainy mustard. Oh no, shoot. I've never done that before. And I usually do equal parts mustard to honey. Okay, let me fix that. Salt and pepper. Honey. And oil. The way that I prepare chicken breast when I make marinated meat with chicken breast, I feel like it cooks up better and doesn't dry out as much when I grill it, is really big chicken breast. I slice 3 ways. So one chicken breast is gonna give me 3 pieces. Not this way, I slice it this way so that they're really thin pieces of meat. If it's a smaller chicken breast, I just cut it in half, and that way I can cook them very quickly in a really hot grill, and I can get a nice char on the outside, but the inside doesn't dry out, because if they're a whole chicken breast and you know they're 1.5 inches thick, they can take forever to cook. And so I just like to cut them nice and thin. So this, ready for the freezer. Now I have a huge mess. I had cleaned the counter up and now I get to clean it again. But before I can tackle this counter, I'm going to actually have a cup of coffee. It is now 12:15 and I don't even remember, did I say what time we started? Was it like 7:30? And we've already gotten a ton of stuff done. It's not even 1 o'clock yet. And I have not had even a full cup of my first cup of coffee. So it is in order. So that's what I'm gonna do here, get this in here. I might as well put this away. I almost just set that on the counter. Sometimes when it's a mess like this, it's harder to keep it clean. That's why I like to kind of have a little bit of a break in between and clean up as I go. See, I said I was gonna sit down, I have a garbage can right here, and have my coffee, but then I'm starting to clean up. Oh, that is hitting the spot. That is delicious. Maybe I should just hold my coffee and put things away and not let myself put my coffee down so that I actually drink it. I'm excited. I have honey now upstairs because I was completely out of honey up here. I need to wash the outside of it though. Sometimes these big cooking days are kind of, oh, see, look, I dropped my blender lid on the floor. Sometimes these big cooking days are good kind of like restock days for me because I kind of see what I'm running out of and then I can restock what I need to restock. Ah. What goes over there? Missing the lid.
I like to show you the reality of what it takes to do a cooking day like this, and this is the reality. I had messed up the counter once, got it clean, messed it up again. I'm gonna get it clean. But the beauty of this is I did this before Christmas, and for a week and a half of Christmas, I basically relied on these meals and did no cooking between a couple dinner parties we had at other people's homes and what I had done here. Basically, my kitchen was closed for any real cooking for a week and a half because I could rely on this day's worth of efforts. We do some breakfast freezer meal prep too. You're going to see that coming up very shortly. So between that and this, I didn't have to cook for over a week. And it was just a beautiful thing. I cleaned my kitchen really well before the holidays, and I was just able to enjoy a clean kitchen and home cooked meals at the same time.
Our taquitos are basically frozen now at this point, or pretty close to it. So we can get them in some bags. I love using silicone reusable bags for things like this. And so we're gonna get these in here. I'm going to try to put the same kind in the same bag. Might take, yeah, 2 bags per flavor. And these will get eaten very quickly. These are absolutely delicious and so incredibly convenient to have on hand. Just pull 2 of these out, heat them up, and you've got a delicious lunch. Or throw some enchilada sauce in a 9x13, top it with enchilada sauce, and you've got a really delicious dinner. So that was the beef ones. This is the chicken, which are my favorite. I like using the silicone bags when I put stuff in it. The cleanup is not going to be a huge pain. So something like this is absolutely perfect for it. Here's the lineup of what we got done today. We got our pork with our citrus marinade that we'll have this weekend for dinner. We got a chicken, one of those, which I'll put on kebabs when I thaw it and go to eat it. 1 honey mustard, 2 Korean beefs, 1 skirt steak for the grill, 1 for the crock pot. We got 3 of the chipotle honey marinades, skirt steak for the grill, chicken breast for the grill, and a chuck roast for the crock pot. 2 of our taco bakes, 2 of our manicottis, and 2 bags of the beef taquitos, 2 bags of the chicken taquitos, and 2 bags of the buffalo taquitos. All of this has been chilled in the refrigerator, and so now I'm gonna go ahead and get it put into the freezer. Everything is labeled, which is key when you're doing freezer meals, so that you know exactly what you're getting when you go to take them out of the freezer. I think, so we've got the pork, which I have some leftover rice from the taco bake. I think I'm gonna put one of these manicottis in the fridge too, and that is going to be our meal prep for the next few days. And consider me done cooking for the next few days, because I'll make something on the grill and then I'll put the manicotti in the oven with some vegetables, and we'll have 2 really good dinners that we can then eat on for the foreseeable future for lunches, which is great. So I'm gonna get these in the freezer. So excited to have all of this. I'm excited that I've got some good variety, things for the crock pot, things for the grill, things for the oven, and some really delicious dinners and lunches for the foreseeable future. Friend, it's not even 1:30 and we are done. The kitchen is basically clean. The dishwasher has 26 minutes left and then I can load it. I do need to wash my cutting boards by hand, but I'm gonna do those later once I unload the dishwasher. Counter's clean, everything is great. The sun is shining and I am done for the week. I'm considering my kitchen basically kind of closed. Well, I guess I still need to grill that pork and, I don't know, make a vegetable or whatever. But we have a ton, maybe I'll do that on Sunday. Today's Friday, so tomorrow maybe we'll have the manicotti. Sunday maybe we'll have the pork. And the kitchen's basically clean. So how awesome is that? One benefit of getting up extremely early and getting started super early is it's not even 1:30 and I am done. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I'm so excited for these meals. If you want to see how I incorporate these meals into my our daily menu plan, our weekly menu plan is typically freezer meals. We usually only have like 1, maybe 2 a week. So these will last me quite some time. And then it's just on nights where I just don't feel like cooking. I don't want to cook. Sometimes I rely heavily on freezer meals when I want to keep my kitchen clean. After I get it clean, I don't want to mess it up making a bunch of things. And so I'll rely heavily on them. Or sometimes I just want to make a bunch of recipes because I'm feeling inspired. And so every night of the week I cook in the kitchen. So it really just depends. But if you want to see how I incorporate them and you're new, consider subscribing and I will share that in upcoming videos. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I can pop a couple of my other videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you are having a fantastic day and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.